Spider Within is known for being quite the thriller. I mean, what's there not to love? It's a 7 minute short film about Miles Morales being Spider Man and dealing with the anxiety attack that is caused from both school being Spider Man and trying to live up to his potential, which he struggles in the first movie, but then struggles again. Now, I might have talked about a Spider Verse quite a bit with a bunch of movies, a bunch of YouTube poops, and all of that. But today, I wanted to take another close look at the Spider Within, not looking at it based on its storyline, but looking at it symbolically. So I want to keep this a little short and talk about some of the things that I found were symbolic and a little Easter eggs near the end. So with that being said, let's just get right into this, because I know you guys want to go trick-or-treating.
First things first.
Once this film, The Spider Within, is starting, we don't even see Miles Morales. We only see the logos. Now, while we're seeing the logos, we hear heavy breathing, like reminding me of like the Halo 3 ODST when you're in pain and you're trying to heal. This is exactly what people do when they're having like a panic attack, when they're just trying to breathe in and trying to calm themselves down. And the thing I love about it kind of reminds me of Inside Out too, with how there's a saying that Anxiety said. She says,
And my job is to protect her from the scary stuff she can't see.
and since we don't see what the problem is of the Spider Within, it's setting up to be like this. We don't know what it is going into it, but we're about to find out, causing us to be more anxious and a little bit tense, which is a genius on their part because of how it's building up more anxiety. And then at 128, we see representation. We see Miles, walking past a mirror, and then we actually see his silhouette, which is actually foreshadowing, no pun intended, but we see his shadow in the mirror of like showing of the what's yet to come, which is such a great detail. Once we get the greetings and niceties aside, Miles is about to go to his room after declining his offer of watching TV with his dad, and he's like,
Are you okay, son?
Fuck no, baby.
and then we could see from Jeff's perspective of the Miles looking tense, but then looking back at him and saying, "Yeah, I'm okay," showing that even though he's tense, he's still trying to fight to show that he's still okay when he's not. And this is something he learns throughout this film, but we'll get to that in a sec. And then this isn't really much symbolism, but it's something I like to find out. We see it seems similar to Gwen and Miles. In this scene, we see Miles falling from. We don't know exactly what. This could just be like a representation of how everything's going downhill. But we see Miles like struggling because he can't shoot a web, which is similar to what happened in Across the Spider-Verse, which I find is really funny because this takes place before Across the Spider-Verse. So it's just like, oh my goodness, so much representation. Speaking of representation, I gotta say there's a lot of color that has to do with it. Like purple is about the inner thoughts of Miles, red is about the danger and the dominance that's about to happen since he's not in control, and then blue is the calm and stability that goes throughout the film, which leads us to the next film that Joey proves it. So we know the scene where Miles is on the train and he's fighting, quite literally, himself. But then after he punches him with a Venom Blast, which granted is a powerful attack, it does nothing. It may have done something for Kingpin, it might have done something for Miguel, but it doesn't work on himself or his inner thoughts. Why do I say that? Because Miles, the shadowy part, he transforms into the spider. And I think a lot of people could agree that this spider that he turns into is the exact spider that he swatted at the first film, which was the exact spider that bit him. And this just shows, well, let's just go through the first scene first. So the shadowy figure turns into a giant spider, and so the giant spider is like cornering him against like a wall. And then the thing is that giant spider turns into a bunch of tiny spiders, which then all get on Miles and then essentially love him down, or in other words, try to ground him down. So Miles is struggling. He's going around his room trying to get away from them. And then eventually the red background turns into a blue background. And then let's go to the ceiling, goes through the door, and then talks to his dad about what's happening as they leave to go outside to get a breather, which was just really nice to see. It was a good way of showing the relationship with his father. But this is where the symbolic representation plays in. So, Miles, the shadow Miles that turns into the giant spider, that's the spider. That caused a big problem in the first film and is a bigger problem in the second film. The size of the spider shows how big of a problem it is. And the fact that's cornering Miles against the wall. It's like that Across the Spider-Verse scene where he's being chased from all these Spider-Man. Hence is why the big spider turns into a bunch of tiny spiders that are tackling him and trying to get him down on the ground, or like kind of like subdue him, like stop him. Which honestly, the big giant spider with great power turns into a bunch of other spiders with great power as well, because they're all trying to stop the threat that is Miles because of how big he is compared to the other spiders, because of how he's the only one that's a human, an anomaly, and he's trying to get away from all of them. Not saying that the others are all spiders, but you get the point. So, when Miles gets away from the tense situation, kind of like in Across the Spider-Verse, where he finds an area of calmness when he's in his room, he goes through the door, which is kind of similar to the go home machine of trying to go home to his dad, which is exactly the plot of Across the Spider-Verse, where he's just trying to get back to his dad. And it's no different within the Spider. Also, the song at the end of The Spider Within is Make It Out Alive, which is just very relatable in a sense of how it relates to the story and how it relates to Across the Spider-Verse leading into Beyond the Spider-Verse. Because we don't know what happens, but we kind of get some of the plot sprinkled with Across the Spider-Verse, because, you know, it's a part one, it's part two, the part two. And then, oh, right, Easter eggs. So I found two little tiny Easter eggs sprinkled into the film. First one is when we look at the shelf, we see Peter Porker. Not sure how Miles obtained that, but I think it's just because Sony currently has a favorite Spider-Man, and it's not even a man, it's a ham, because he's in Into the Spider-Verse. He had his own short. He then was in Across the Spider-Verse near the end, and then of course he has a little cameo within the Spider Within. I see what I did there. So, second one, we see Stan Lee, a picture of Stan Lee actually on Miles's shelf. I know this picture quality is kind of mid, but you can clearly see that it's Stan Lee. And yeah, that's pretty much all I got for you. So, Spider-Man Within the Spider-Verse has a lot of symbolism, whether it has to do with the colors of blue, red, and purple, having some sort of inner thoughts of either like inner workings, rage, or clarity, and the spider becoming big and representing how big of a problem it is, turning into tiny spiders which chase him and Across the Spider-Verse, to then leading to assumingly the ending of Beyond the Spider-Verse, which we don't know, but I'm assuming that the Spider Within ends the way Beyond the Spider-Verse will end. We don't know. We'll just have to figure out. But that's all I got for you today. So, hope you enjoyed this film. If you haven't checked out The Spider Within, what are you doing? Go check it out. And yeah, enjoy Halloween and maybe swinging around the city of concrete. Adios.